So now we're still talking about the licensing process, but I want to bring a couple different ideas into the fray so that we can further this conversation. I really want to talk about some key license terms or concepts that we need to know in order to effectively negotiate a license for synchronization. Now, really, this is another version of your triple DRP, but I just say media territory and your term are the things you need to establish in order to have a valid negotiation on licenses. Media, the territory, and the term. Let's talk about them more in a little bit of depth in this slide. So pay attention, okay? Media, what type of media are you going to be using? This is free or broadcast television, basic cable, pay or subscription television, satellite, pay-per-view, video on demand, pay video on demand. What type of exploitation are we talking about? What type of media is this going to be used for? This request going to be used for? You've already found me. Look no further, fella. You found me. You've already found where I am. And now I got some questions. Well, you want to use my song. How is it going to be used? Which media is it going to be used for? The second one is, which territory are you going to distribute this content in? Is it a regional broadcast? Is it a national broadcast? Is it international? I'm international now, bruv. I need to know the geographic region where this content is going to be distributed. The wider the region, the higher the license fee, okay? And the last one is term. Quite specifically, how long are you going to be using this license for? Is this in perpetuity? Or is it a 13-week cycle, which is the cycle for most TV shows and how we gauge commercials? It's like 13 weeks to an entire year. So what my media territory and term consist of will directly impact what my license fee would be, okay? All things considered, the more media territory and term you ask for, the higher the license fee will be, okay? Now, again, let's just go back and clarify a couple of things. The production company that is responsible for creating this content, creating the TV show, creating the film, is going to have a person, if not a team of people, that's going to be seeking these licenses. It may be somebody that's in-house that works for the studio, or it may be a third-party contracted service like Matt Lilly that actually handles those things for the studio. Okay, those individuals be music supervisors. I hope there's some that are in the class right now that want to be or that are aspiring music supervisors because it's an awesome career. And so those individuals are working either on behalf of or alongside the production company in order to obtain these licenses. The production company then takes that content and either sells it to a network or sells it to a studio, and they distribute it on TV and throughout movie theaters. Okay, so that's the hierarchy, is that the production company creates it, they license it, they hand it off to the network or to the major studios. Oftentimes those details are already ironed out, and then it gets distributed to the region, the location, and where it's supposed to be, okay? Additional information to consider regarding key license term is, now that I've contacted you, I've identified who the songwriter and the publisher are, I'm inside these negotiations, I say I want to use your track, and now you respond to me as the producer seeking that license. What's the media territory and term? I give you that information. Okay, you come back to me again and say, well, I need some additional information. I need some information. And you say, what's the name of the production? What's the name of the production company? Who are the actors starring in that production? Who's the director and or writer? What is the film budget? What's the music budget? Can you give me a synopsis of the film? Which specific scene is this thing going to be used in? This music going to be used in? And what type of usage are we talking about? Is this a visual vocal, background vocal, visual instrumental, background instrumental? And really, how long are you thinking that this is going to be used for? Okay, how long are you thinking that this is going to be used for? Now, there's a great story surrounding this that we'll talk about in person, okay, specifically regarding a Quentin Tarantino movie, or two Quentin Tarantino movies. I love talking about Tarantino where synchronization is concerned because he's very specific about the masters that he wants to use. So we'll talk about that when we see each other in person. I'll give you an example of that. But why, pray tell, would I be asking these questions as the publisher? Why would I be asking the producer seeking the license or the music supervisor seeking the license all of these questions? Well, I'm really trying to stack a bunch of pieces of information so that I can come back with an accurate quote or an accurate figure to give you to start our negotiation process, okay? If I understand that director of this film is Quentin Tarantino and the budget for this film is huge, well, there's a pretty high chance that my music that you're requesting is going to be used in a significant way in the film, right? That's why I say, what's the synopsis of the film? What's the specific scene description? How is it going to be used, right? When we start to talk about Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, and I start dancing, that's a very important piece of music. A very important piece of music. Ergo, the license fee should be higher because it's an important element of the film. It's an important element of the storytelling process. And so it's very important to have an accurate description so I can accurately quote you for the value that that music is going to convey in your film. You understand? So the value is really what I'm trying to get to when I'm asking these questions so that I can come back and say, well, our song is worth this amount to your production. So these information to consider, these additional questions, is really a fact-finding mission so that I can better position myself to give you an accurate number that is mutually beneficial. It works within your budget, but it also gives the value, the appropriate value, to my intellectual property asset that I either own or control, and give it so that my publishing company and my writer are earning the appropriate amount of money for the work that they've put in their piece of intellectual property. If we remember back again to Congress shall have the power to promote the progress of science and the useful arts, the intent of that statement was to incentivize people to create a piece of intellectual property. They're incentivizing them to do so that, potentially speaking, that track can be used for life of the composer plus 70 years to add financial benefit to the owner of that copyright. Right? A perfect example of this, and I know that half of you are in diapers when this happened, is the final episode of The Sopranos. No one cared about that Journey song. No one really even thought about it unless you were listening to oldies classic rock radio. No one cared. Now every single wedding that you go to is going to end with that particular song. So don't you stop believing that this is a powerful mechanism. Man, it's just, yeah, sometimes, as corny as it is, it's just so good. Let's talk about fees real quick for the end of this particular video. If an artist feels that the exposure on that particular program is more important than the license fee itself, meaning that use is going to put them in front of an audience and the audience is going to go, this is great, let's go buy their music, buy a ticket to the show, get a t-shirt, get a beanie, then they can issue what's called a gratis license or a free license, not gratis, it's Latin, not Spanish, a gratis license, and they can have other forms of consideration other than monetary consideration, okay? One thing that we can use is something called an art card. This is featured at the end of the program. It says this episode features music by the band, and they name the name and they give kind of like a way in which you can find them. Another one is that you can be featured on the program's website, and I have links to the band's iTunes page, Spotify links, their EPK, those sorts of things. It links out to valuable resources that would be beneficial for an audience member to know about the music being featured. I'm sure you guys have seen this in some way, shape, or form. Another thing that you do all the time is start to Shazam songs that are being featured on, whatever show that you're watching, whether it's network or streaming. It's another incredibly powerful metric, not only for you as the musician, but for other people watching what's going on in terms of the velocity of what that artist is doing. We'll talk about this more in 681.